Hi, it's Sari. So, on a Tuesday, I normally do answer two people's questions on the main page. I'm just sharing it here just give me a second, I'm just going to share it somewhere to see if we get anybody who has any questions. So, if anybody is here, say hi so I can see who's there. Hello, Thomas. How are you diddling? How are you doing? Long time no see. Let me know who else is there. I am just sharing this to another page to see if anyone is around. Let's have a look. And yeah, so I just come on to hi Gail, hope you're well. Just to answer a couple of questions on a Tuesday. I don't know if I did it last Tuesday. Good, glad to hear it, Thomas. I can't remember whether I did it last Tuesday or not. A lot of you will know or may not know. Gail, that I had my uncle passed away not last week, the week before. So it's been a really sad time. And then we had his funeral on Friday, just gone. And so I've been a bit all over the place. I'm fine, but it's just been, when things are just like a strange time when things are, you're not in your normal routine and there's things going on that don't normally happen. And then I've gone, and as you've probably seen on my page, gone and got myself a puppy who is currently just down there having a little snooze. He's absolutely bloody gorgeous. However, they're hard work because they cry in the night. He only did it for a couple of nights, but it was still hard work. And having to just take them outside every 20 minutes to try and potty train is also hard work. So I am actually a little bit tired. Hi, Adam. Hi, John. So if anyone has any questions, please shout up, because the whole point... Oh, sorry about this. Not looking the finest, am I? The point of this is just for me to answer a couple of questions that may help people. So if anyone's... Okay, Thomas, yes, I can say something about intense anxiety. Tell me what you want to know. Tell me, be more specific, and I will definitely come back and answer your question. What do you want to know about it? Thank you, John. It's part of the cycle of life, isn't it? But it still never makes it any easier, especially when people are young. He was only early 60s, so too young. Not very fair, but hey ho, you can't think like that because you'd never get by, would you? So yeah. When the feelings are overwhelming and scary. Okay, so what you're probably talking about then there, Thomas, is what I would call, whenever I've experienced anxiety, where it feels like it becomes almost debilitating. Now, we're the ones that decide that those feelings are scary, and it's often our fear of those feelings or our belief that they're so scary is what keeps it there and keeps it getting bigger and bigger and feeling more scary. So often it's because we are trying to resist and we are not okay with how we are in that moment, and we're trying to fight it with all our might to try and get rid of this horrible thing called anxiety, when feelings of anxiety come from anxious thinking. Now, we're the ones doing the anxious thinking. Nightingale, we're the ones doing the anxious thinking, and so it's coming from the inside out. And when we get into a bit of a cycle of overthinking and then becoming fearful of the fact that we might get anxious. So I know historically when I was really anxious, one of the biggest problems for me was anticipating when the next episode would come and how bad it would be, and would it be worse, and would it be the one that would just tip me over the edge, and how would I cope with it. And so my worst experience was not in the actual moment itself, it was always the run up to stuff, and me kind of preempting how things would be, because when we are thinking in a certain way, when we are thinking anxious thoughts, we're going to feel anxious, even if we, even if nothing scary is actually happening, even if we kind of know that on some level, we can have so much anxious thinking that we start to feel really anxious. And it does feel as if we are literally, in a fight or flight, life or death situation, even when there's not anything actually that scary going on in that moment. So the key is really to understand more about how thoughts work and how they are creating our feelings. The thoughts that we're having are creating our feelings. So when it becomes really intense, it's usually because we have been in the cycle and been in this habit for quite some time, and our adrenaline levels have risen, and so then we are almost kind of quite quick to go into fight or flight. So things that may not bother us ordinarily, if we're going through an anxious period because we've had lots of anxious overthinking, it might be that something really quite small that we see as small historically will suddenly feel like we can't deal with it. And as I said before, it's like, if you think about somebody that goes on a roller coaster because they absolutely love the adrenaline rush of a roller coaster, will have all the symptoms that somebody who's got a load of anxious thinking will have. And that's why we kind of have those symptoms on a roller coaster, because we're thinking, oh my God, what if it broke? What if it's too fast? How's it going to be? Am I going to like it? Am I not going to like it? So there's anxious thinking going on. But at the same time, it's kind of like, we know that we're choosing to do it, and we're kind of like, but I'm going to have fun, and this is what the rush is about. And so, people that go out there seeking adrenaline, and it's exactly the same thing that is happening when we're anxious, that, that we are getting into a situation where we are preempting what might happen, and we're trying to work out the future, and we're trying to figure out all the what ifs, and then we're starting to feel really overwhelmed with it. And because we don't like it, we then resist it. So again, if we were feeling anxious on a roller coaster, we just go, oh, it's because I'm on here and I'll be all right once it gets going. If you're then feeling that at home and don't see the reason for it, what often keeps it there longer is this idea that we're then going, why do I feel like this? What's going on? What if it gets worse? Because we don't feel like there's a justification for it. But there's always a justification for it, because it always comes from the same place, which is from a place of overthinking, from a place of anxious thinking. We never ever get anxious feelings without anxious thoughts. Never ever. 100% of the time it comes from our thinking. Have a look what people are saying here. I lost my partner a few months back. It's hard. She was my world. I felt so lost without her. I'm not surprised. I'm so sorry to hear that. I did a video a couple of weeks ago about grief. So maybe have a scroll back and have a look, John. But you just need to be with whatever shows up day in, day out, and don't expect yourself to feel a certain way. Don't expect yourself to not have thoughts coming up, all of that. Like, it's really completely normal. Martine, anxiety is awful. I live with it every day of my life. Okay, and that's where it becomes really difficult, Martine, because that's how people do live, and it really doesn't need to be like that. Like, it's not about saying, right, we're going to get rid of anxiety and you're never going to feel anxious. I still sometimes feel anxious, but the difference is because I know how it works and I've explored the 3 principles that I now coach others, I don't fear it. So I kind of am not that bothered if I'm anxious, and I know it will always pass quickly. But what often keeps it there, so it's day after day after day for people, it's because they're trying so hard to resist what is in that moment. If you have feelings of anxiety, it's because you have lots of anxious thinking going on. And until you understand how to break that habit and that cycle, that could continue. But it doesn't have to. And people say, oh, you can't get rid of anxiety, you just got to manage it. Yeah, we can't get rid of anxiety, just like we can't get rid of anger, and we can't get rid of sadness, and we can't get rid of happiness, But at the same time, anger's one thing, but then going out punching people every day is another. And I see that the same with anxiety. Yeah, you may well have anxiety from anxious thinking, but it's not something that has to take over your life day in, day out. I get that it does. I've experienced it in that way myself. But once it clicks how it works, and once you lose that fear of it coming, and they're not too fussed when it does, it totally changes the game with it. Like, honestly, that's the key. It's not about saying, because I have people in my private members club who will say, and if they see this, they'll probably laugh, they'll say to me, but how do I get rid of it? And I've had some good days, and now I just need to get rid of it. And it's like that desire to so desperately get rid of what's going on in that moment is what keeps it there for longer, because we're not accepting that we're human beings. Got a job today, by the way. Oh, that's great news, Thomas. Let's have a look. I've had to change my thinking thanks to you. Sorry, my anxiety's gone now. Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I split up from my girlfriend 3 months ago and I'm still suffering from the breakup. She was the first person I fell in love with, first love. I still feel really heartbroken and I have borderline personality disorder too. Yeah, loss is sad, but what you've got to remember is that it's okay to have feelings. But when you layer thoughts upon thoughts upon thoughts upon thoughts and try and figure out and all the whys, that's what's going to keep it there for longer. So, for example, you may have a thought when you get up, you may think, I feel really sad today because I miss my girlfriend. Full stop. That's okay. That's normal. It's allowed. It will pass. But if you wake up and go, I feel really sad today because I miss my girlfriend, rather than going full stop and staying with what feelings are there, you start to go, why did she do it to me? I'm never going to find anyone else. Was it my fault? And start going over all the details. That's going to create suffering for you. So it's not about saying just forget about it and change your feelings or switch off your thinking, because we can't switch off our thinking. We're all having thousands of thoughts a day. But it's about allowing the thoughts, allowing what feelings come with it and putting your full stops in place rather than trying to figure it all out, because it's just going to create long suffering. That's actually how I explain how intense my anxiety is. It's like being on a roller coaster every day makes me sick. Okay, so you're describing really the physical symptoms as, Jackie's just shared the video on grief there. Thank you, Jackie. You are a star. In the manual that I created for families, I talk about the roller coaster of life in there, because actually once we become comfortable with the discomfort of the feelings that show up, it just makes our experience so much more easier. So there are people that are on a roller coaster that love it because they quite like the discomfort, or they're just not that fussed about it. They just accept it is what it is, and it's the same with anxiety. Is there such a thing as a bad person? We're all loving and compassionate at the core of us, but people can be mean and unkind to people. I don't believe that anybody that doesn't have the capacity to be nice and be compassionate, but sometimes their thinking takes them away from that. Vicky, hi, my daughter died in 2015 and I still suffer panic and anxiety so bad I can't leave the house some days. I'm so sorry to hear that, Vicky. That is just like literally every parent's worst nightmare. So of course that is going to feel horrendous. But again, I would really urge you to explore more about the 3 principles, however that is, whether that be with me or whether that be with other people that share the 3 principles, because you don't need to be suffering with the panic attacks to the point where you don't leave the house. Yeah, you're never going to not grieve for somebody so special that you've lost. Of course you are. But it's about having that without not, because the whole panic of not being able to leave the house is then just another added stress that you could do without, because you're less likely to, to probably then be able to find joy and peace of mind at some points, which is what you would want in order to be okay, isn't it? So yeah, I can be sat there with no anxiety. All of a sudden I feel really sick, which then kicks in my anxiety. I feel so awful every day. It stops me doing everything. Some days I don't even get out of bed because of the feelings. Okay, so it does feel like it comes from nowhere, but it doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from anxious thinking. But you may be in such a spiral of overthinking that you're not even realising you're doing it, and it's become a habit. But it absolutely comes from overthinking, from anxious thinking. It doesn't come from nowhere. It's not something that just happened. Someone's just PM'd me and asked me how I did it. How do I explain? Okay. Gail, how do we do it? It's about us seeing things from a different perspective in our mind. It's about us not fearing the thoughts. It's about us having irrational thoughts and being able to choose not to believe them and take them on board, being able to choose to not be able to really bring those negative thoughts to life. We can't stop having negative thoughts, we all have them, but it's what we do with them, it's how much energy we give them and how much we believe them. And the way to do that is by exploring these 3 principles: mind, thought and consciousness, for those that will probably ask me what it is. I have a manual that people can buy, or I also have a private members club, which basically is me doing live coaching calls twice a week and a load of pre-recorded videos in there, such as a 1-week course on anxiety. There's courses for young people in there too. That's if people really want to get to grips. That costs $24.95 a month, and people can stay a month or they can stay longer. I've had people in there for over a year, who've just gone from strength to strength. So there's lots of ways. You can go and Google, YouTube, the 3 principles, but it depends how much support you want. Because I suppose obviously people that are in my private members club are there because they can message me and post comments, and I coach them through the principles basically. But there are, there's ways you can go out and do it by yourself. It just depends how much support you want. I have anxiety attacks a lot myself, but have counselling for it and for my paranoid behaviour, which has got me in trouble in relationships. Okay, John, yeah, sorry to hear that. You've got a lot on your plate, haven't you? And I think, counselling can help. I'm not poo-pooing it at all, because I am a trained qualified psychotherapist and I practiced psychotherapy for many, many years. But actually, I think for anxiety and panic attacks, you can get to a place where you can talk about it for so long that it can create even more anxious thinking. I had therapy for many years and it really helped, develop my awareness and all of that stuff. But I still suffered with anxiety every couple of years to a point where I wouldn't want to leave the house. So for me, it's the only coming across these 3 principles and really understanding how it all works and knowing that I didn't need to believe and be fearful of it. That's what changed it for me. So again, John, I would really encourage you to explore them if you can. Thanks for just being here. No problem at all. Another thank you. Thank you. I can't get out of the house much. I have borderline personality disorder, PTSD and anxiety. I go through trauma every day just based on the facts I have to get up. That is also really hard. Again, but these 3 principles that I'm talking about also work for all of this stuff. I have people saying to me, why don't I just move on? I'm not ready to move on. Doubt I will move on for a long time as I have a big wall up. Do you know what, John? You do things in your own time. Jackie Jones, who also works with me in the private members club, has posted the link for you to the video on grief. But it's not anybody else. It's not up to anybody else about you moving on. And what does that mean? What does ready to move on? There'll be certain aspects of what's happened to you and your grief that you might never want to accept, and that's entirely up to you. It's just about you starting to move forward, as in doing things that you want to do, and maybe considering relationships and things like that. But when you're ready, it's not up to anybody else. So just do what feels right for you. Listen to your gut instincts. Vicky, in my private members club, there is at least 3 parents in there who also fear going out with their children for the same reasons. You can totally do it. You just need to explore. I mean, a lot of the stuff about taking kids out, people are scared because they put so much pressure on themselves to be perfectly fine for their children. And so doing that, the expectation and the pressure becomes so much, the anxious thinking increases, therefore the feelings of anxiety increase. So really, I can see what you're doing, but it's, even if you can go out for a short time, your kids are okay with that. Even if you feel anxious around your children, you're not going to damage them. It's fine. But I get it, and there's lots of people similar. Gary, Hi, Sari. I took your advice with Meetup. It was amazing how many different interest groups there was, including mental health groups. So now it's getting involved when I can. Thank you again. Oh, that's great news, Gary. Well done, you. Keep me posted on how you get on. I miss the coaching group. Might be joining again soon. Hope so, Thomas. We miss you. We all miss you. My gut instinct is always wrong. There's nothing to be fear of, just in my head. Okay, Jane. So this is what I'll finish on. I'm just going to share something. Your gut instinct is never wrong. Your wisdom and your mind and wisdom know what to do. So if you were in a crisis, you would know what to do. And it might not feel to you like you're managing it really well, but you would just know what to do. However, if you're thinking that your gut instinct is wrong, then what you're listening to is not your gut instincts. What you're listening to is panicked thoughts, okay? And the reason you'll know the difference is because if your thoughts in your head are telling you, say if you were out and about and you were feeling panicked, and if your thoughts were saying, right, oh my God, I've got to get out of here, and they're loud and they're fast and they're panicky, then that's panicked, anxious thoughts. It's not your gut instinct. When your gut instinct crops up, it's usually when your mind calms and settles ever so slightly, and it's in that moment and you just know what to do, and it'll just be very calm, like, do you know what? I know what to do. So don't confuse anxious thinking with Don't confuse anxious thinking with your wisdom and your gut instinct. It's always right. It's always right, our gut instinct. But often we think we're listening to that when we're not. We're listening to our panicked thoughts, okay? And there is a difference. So, and then there's something about saying other people. Again, the more you explore these principles, you will realise that people cannot make you feel anything. I get that it seems like that, but they can't, because what is happening is it's your thoughts and perceptions about them, okay, that is then creating those feelings. So when you are seeing someone that you have thoughts about, like, they don't treat me well, or I wish they wouldn't say that, you have a choice to leave that where it is and not be around those people, or be around them and just take it with a pinch of salt. But if you then start to get worked up again, adding layers and layers of thoughts, like why do they do that? Why are they like that? Why are they not a nice person? And you get so involved in trying to figure them out, because we can't control other people, and we will come across people that we don't like or we don't feel are treating us well. The more that you do that, the worse it will feel. Yeah. So you feel like they were stressing you out. I get it. But what was stressing you out was your thoughts about them being there. So I hope that helps a little bit. John, I still find it very hard to accept that the partner is no longer here. Of course you will. Of course you will. And I know people say it, and I know it might be a bit irritating. It does get easier with grief, but I don't think it ever goes away. And I think it's about finding ways to manage what feels right for you and in your own time. Do not put pressure on yourself to be finished grieving. It doesn't work like that. Just go with whatever feels right in the moment. So there you go. So what I will do is, anyone who's got any questions, anyone who does want me to send details of the private members club, who wants to get to grips with it all and get to a point where they're not massively overwhelmed with anxiety, feel free to message me and I'll send you that. Like I say, I've also got the manual, and then I try and do these videos as often as I can. Definitely on a Tuesday I'm doing them, but for those that are in my members club, I do 2 live coaching calls a week, and also I have loads of pre-recorded videos in there too. So yeah. So all of this, like, suffer for 4 years, 30 years, like, we don't need to be suffering like this. We don't need to be suffering. But I get it. I suffered for a long time as well, because I was always looking in the wrong direction. I was always looking to try and fix myself and try every single thing I could ever find, and still convinced myself that when it didn't work, I was a failure. But really all I needed to do is understand how human nature works, stop beating myself up, stop putting immense pressure on myself, stop giving a shit what other people think, and just enjoying life. And it sounds dead easy, doesn't it? I know it's not always that easy, but actually it's quite simplistic. But we overcomplicate it. No problem, John. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there, and I will love you and leave you. Just asked if there was a live. Sammy, I went on and did live, and there was no one there to let me know whether they could hear me or not from yesterday. So this is just, I always answer a couple of questions on a Tuesday on the main page. So that's why. So I'll message you in a minute, Sammy. I hope you're okay. Okay, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.